Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning in to Hyphenate Halftime on this Monday, May 27th, Memorial Day. Long weekend. Hopefully everybody is not at work. Or maybe you were listening to this on Tuesday because you only listen to us on the days you are at work. Mr. Aaron Farley,
yes.
How are you doing? Are you off today? This Monday, the holiday
well.
Monday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I will be. I mean, I am off. I'm off now.
Yeah.
I'm having a vacation.
How is it going? How's the vacation going?
Nice, beautiful morning. This is a morning podcast. We'll see if people can tell. Yeah. Beautiful. 9:00 in the morning.
I think the evening
or whatever time you're listening
always start out a little bit more crankier. What's going on? Yeah. All right, we're here.
Yeah,
we're on the air.
Getting this done.
Fucking thing, motherfucker. 10 a.m., 10 p.m. Fragger.
Yeah, you just turn into like some weird Muppet.
Yes. It's Muppet O'Clock. Randy's turned into the Swedish
like those
chef
two
again.
old guys.
Those Statler and Waldorf.
Or those two old guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Statler and Waldorf. I've seen
better film on teeth. Yeah.
I tried to show. Have you tried to show the Muppets to your kids?
I know they're already not into it.
They just we tried to. You couldn't find it for a long time.
Right.
Trying to find them on like YouTube and stuff. And you couldn't find the full like the Muppet Show, which was like the variety show.
I have the box set on DVD. Whenever that came out, I bought that, or Blu-ray. I bought the box set.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because we were trying to find it. I'm like, this is crazy. It's not on YouTube. It's not anywhere. And then turned out that I think Disney had bought it, and then they were getting ready to put it on Disney Plus or something.
Okay.
And so then we watched a couple, and for their minds, it was pretty slow.
It's pretty slow. It is pretty slow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such an interesting history of that show, but then also just the bigger story of the Muppet X Disney kind of, saga is also conflicted and strange.
I don't know the story.
Well, yeah. I mean, the quick synopsis, that show was produced in England. Like Jim Henson and the Henson Co. always, he really made money in commercials. That was the big thing, right? I think we've talked about this, and then was paid handsomely for his involvement in Sesame Street, which was good because he was the only real professional there. Everybody else was like educators and whatnot on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But in terms of him trying to make his own show, like I think Jim always had big, ambitions, but he ended up finding a British like theater producer who would back them and kind of bankroll that show. So they had to shoot it in England, and then it was sold as an independent thing, like into syndication. Like it was not an NBC presents The Muppet Show, even though there had been all this other stuff. He had done like interstitials for Lorne Michaels and Saturday Night Live, which were kind of more the adult ones. But that show in particular was just a weird one. It like shot on this like sound stage, and there's theater in London, and was kind of done in between things. And it actually, I think, cost Jim money because he could be doing more financial things, but he wanted the show. Like it was a point of pride that he had his own show and they had to do it all. But they did it on such a shoestring budget, and really that kind of ragtag group of people. And and there's great. I got back-ended into this just because of the Empire Strikes Back, Frank Oz as Yoda. And they shot basically, within, if not the same studio, within proximity of each other. So Frank Oz would be doing Fozzie Bear on the Muppet Show, and then run over to L Street and then do Yoda there. And so
really?
they were shooting.
Wait, so the same guy
time.
that did the same guy that did Fozzie Bear was the voice of Yoda.
Oh yeah, so you really
I didn't know that.
you're really far
Oh
off
no, no,
from
no!
the
I don't
Muppet
know any
world.
of
Oh
this
my god,
stuff.
okay, I'm deep in the Muppet
Yeah,
hole.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
No.
Jim Henson's right hand man, Frank Oz, who'd also later go on to direct films and who directed Bowfinger amongst many other great movies.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, he's the
Yoda directed Bowfinger.
Yoda directed Bowfinger.
Oh
Yes.
my god, this is amazing.
Frank Oz is also the prison guy when he's giving back John Belushi all of his stuff in Blues Brothers. Like
Oh really?
one prophylactic used, one pair of sunglasses, one black hat, one black jacket, one black tie. Yeah,
They should have just had Fozzie Bear come in for that one, for that character.
Yeah, Frank Oz is amazing. But he, so anyway, but he was doing, so the joke on set, I think, was the Yoda was the offspring of Kermit and Miss Piggy. If they were a baby, it would look like a Yoda. But anyway, so yeah, the Muppets have an incredible story. I'm not so shy of a nerd in this world of stuff, but yeah, I love
that.
I loved it. So, but anyway, but the show was great, and I think it was music rights for them because they would have the Muppet Show itself was kind of like a variety show, which is popular at that time. It doesn't really translate to what we know now as TV and this kind of reality TV, let alone social media. TikTok 60-second kind of bursts of in your face, randomness. Back then it was like you had a whole hour to like spin one joke and like they'd have a running joke going from the opening thing to the end
from the whole thing.
Yeah, you're like,
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, kind of. Oh yeah, pigs in space.
Great.
Yeah, and the Swedish. I have to say the Swedish chef holds up, holds up. Good. That sketch, it's funny every time. I
feel like Andy Samberg does a really good Swedish chef. I've seen him do it.
Oh, I'd imagine, yeah. Well, I was just thinking if you're saying like the variety show and you have like the through line that goes through the whole thing, that was very much like what was it? Bob Odenkirk and Dave.
Mr. Show.
What was their variety show?
Oh yeah,
Mr. Show.
Love that.
Always had the through line that went through everything, and they'd like go through one door, and all of a sudden you'd be in like the next sketch.
Yeah, well, that was SCTV
too.
Open
up into the next sketch.
I don't know if did you ever watch SCTV? Yeah. That was your kid. It was like they were.
I've watched
changing the channels.
Some of.
Like you would be on the thing and they would just change between things instead of like, and now for something completely different, like Monty Python, or like Saturday Night Live would be like scene, then they stop and they open a new one. There was like that way to kind of connect the sketches. I feel like, yeah.
I do feel like that the, there definitely could be a new version of the Muppet Show. Although they've tried
so many times. It's not for without, that's what I'm saying, that like the nature of the Disney owning the Muppets thing is like Disney has really not been able to crack that code. I think Jason Segel did a great job with that, his reboot.
That movie was good.
It was great. You really need a singular voice, I think, with a little bit of, with a hippie sort of anti-establishmentism, kind of running it. I realized like what made it so good was really Jim Henson's, soft but satirical sort of, poke you in the eye sort of take on the world. He
and it still could be a kid's show, but it really was like, it really was an adult show that kids could watch. Yeah.
Really,
yeah. Cause I remember, didn't they have Prince? Oh no, Prince was on Sesame Street. There's like a good musical thing where Prince is dressed up like a hick, like a farmer.
Yeah, I
and they're singing like country songs or something. He jumps in.
He's like cooking.
It was either Sesame Street or.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the Muppet Show.
It wasn't the original Muppet Show. It was something they rebooted in the early aughts or something they did.
Really?
And he like writes a song.
Oh, was it that late?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Because Prince was still in his lace underwear and high heels and trench coat phase in those early days.
I feel like that would have worked though, because I feel like Cher, Sonny and Cher was on the Muppet Show, I think, and it was like this is a little risque without being risque. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, they're great.
I feel like probably Willie Nelson. There's got to be like a Willie Nelson one. I'm sure there's John Denver, right? Didn't he sing with Kermit?
Yeah.
Like,
I love John Denver.
The Rainbow song or whatever.
Rainbow Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Denver's a weird one. John
I don't.
Denver
I'm waiting for
is
the
an anomaly,
Timothy
don't you think?
Chalamet to play the John Denver story, or a Paul Walter
The John
Hauser. Or I don't know
Is there a
who's.
story?
I don't know.
I'm
That's what I'm
wondering if
so
there's even a
curious.
story.
I think he died in a plane accident. That sounds sad, and everything
Oh,
else
that's
sounded
true.
so
That is
nice.
sad.
I imagine he lives in Denver. He probably didn't. He probably never lived in Denver. But I imagine there's like just John Denver
Is
living on a mountain and like singing these beautiful songs, and then flies into a mountain.
Yeah.
That's kind of the John Denver story I have in my mind. I would like
Oh
to know
my
more
God.
about the John Denver story. Right?
Well, I wonder if it is that like when you had a
Country
friend in a band.
road,
Like, did
take
people
me
ever
home.
call you like Randy No Age because they knew
Oh,
your first name and the band that you're at? Like, is
I
that just because he was from Denver and he was like the guy from Denver, so everyone
that's
just started calling him John
that's what
Denver?
I'm assuming,
Like,
right?
John Denver.
John
He's
Denver,
the guy from Denver.
John
John
Denver. Yeah,
Denver. Yeah.
I've done that to other people. I was blessed with a very unique name, Aaron Farley. I don't know if you've ever
Right.
thought about the name Randy Randall. I would like to thank my mom,
Rolls Royce.
Jovian Randall, for naming me this, and my father, Randy Randall, and his. No, yeah, I got.
Wait, is your dad's name Randy?
My dad's name is also Randy.
No.
Yeah, he's Randy Lee Randall, and I'm Randy Stephen Randall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, but you decided not to do the second, like Randy Randall the second.
No,
Is it
I
say
think
that on your birth certificate?
no. He always said because we had different middle names that we were different. Often
It doesn't count.
Often we would just be referred to as Big Randy and Little Randy, and so he'd be Big Randy or Big Enos and Little Enos, like in Smokey and the Bandit. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
Yeah.
so is the naming? Was there a reason for? I mean, was your grandpa's name Randy as well?
No, as far as I can tell, his name was Clinton Randall. I don't know
Clinton
why.
Randall?
I don't know why they named my poor father Randy Randall. And
Like, it just seemed.
I was just next in line.
I mean, it works.
Worked for him.
I think it works.
Worked for me. No, I think there was a certain amount of theatricality to the name that I would would later appreciate. I remember one of my first jobs.
It would.
People just saw my name on the call sheet or whatever on the new hire sheet, and then as soon as I walked into the job, they're like, "Hey, it's you! All right, Randy Randall, you're here." And I was like, already had goodwill and charm and charisma going into a thing before I even showed up. So there was a path laid for me, like just be the Randy Randall they think you are, be whatever they think a Randy Randall is, and you'll probably do well in this world.
It's like the opposite of boy named Sue.
Right. Yeah. It'd make you tougher. This had to make me nicer.
Because boy named Sue is like, well, you make them sue, and so it's like it's someone who has to deal with really bad adversity, and yours is just like has a really nice ring to it.
Hey,
so like, no,
this guy.
But you got to be that guy though. Yeah, you got to be the guy that is able to conquer this name.
Yeah.
For me, I just get no matter what from the age of 6. I just was called Farley.
Oh.
So it's like I've never introduced myself as Farley ever. I've never said, "Hey, you just call me Farley."
Yeah.
Because, my name is Aaron.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that I've had anybody call me Aaron after they've known me for like a week. It's always been they hear someone call me Farley and they're like, "Oh, people just call you Farley?" And I'm like, I mean, it's up to you. I've never told anyone to call me Farley. But that's just my name.
It's all good. Well,
so I'm like, all right.
I've often heard your wife refer to you as Farley. So,
yeah, she never says Aaron.
Yeah,
ever.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
that's
really
all you need to know, right? If your wife, whatever your wife calls you, that's the easy one.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it just happens. It happened in middle school. It happened in high school.
Was there another Aaron in the
college
class? Did you have to?
No, it doesn't matter. Aaron's kind of a weird name to call it. It's a weird. It's kind of I don't know. I think people get confused of like how to spell it maybe in their head. They never know if it's like 2 A's or 1 A's. And then you're like, "Oh, Farley." And they're like, "Can I just call you Farley?" That seems easier for me.
You seem like a Farley.
Okay, yeah,
we're just going to go with the Farley on it.
Yeah, I guess. But it happened to my brother too. My brother, everyone calls my brother Farley.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Although he gets called Jason more often. He'll get his first name, but yeah,
Farley Granger. He was a good actor. He was in Strangers on a Train, Alfred Hitchcock films. Do you know Farley Granger?
No. It's okay. But I'll have to look him up now.
He's a 40s, 50s actor.
Well, and we had one friend whose name was Farley, the girl.
Oh,
Her name is Farley, but it was with an Leigh.
oh, that's tough.
And I feel like maybe it's just a first name. Honestly,
Could
I
be.
think
Yeah.
that
You could.
I think it will make that.
You're born
I
with
mean, it
two
is
first
used as a
names.
first name, like you said.
Yeah. But you never thought of
I
naming
guess
your
so.
kids
Yeah.
Farley Farley? Mr. Farley Farley?
No.
No. Okay. That's
Or
good.
like, I mean, but how could I uh, Frank Farley? I don't
That'd
know.
be good.
I'm trying to think of the Randy Randall
Right.
version
Yeah.
of
Carl.
Farley.
Carl. Like
it would
like
almost
Carl
have to
with an F. Farl.
Carl Farley
Farl.
or
Farley.
Charlie
Yeah.
Charlie Farley
Charlie Farley was good.
or Charlie Farley.
Hey, Charlie Farley.
I think that's more in line. Yeah, Charlie Farley.
That's the Randy Randall equivalent of your name.
It has to roll.
Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It has to roll off.
Go ahead and
Randy
write
Randall
us.
and Charlie Farley present.
Write us on Instagram at Randy S. Randall. And how would you Randy Randallize your name?
Yeah.
Can you Randallize your name? What would the equivalent be?
Can you make that app?
Yeah.
The Randy Randallizer?
The Randallizer.
It's like the Wu-Tang
Oh yeah.
the Wu-Tang name generator.
That's great. We'll have to
Did you know that Donald Glover?
Uh-huh.
You know the actor Donald Glover?
Yeah.
And how his rap name is Childish Gambino?
Yeah. Was that from the Wu-Tang app?
Did you know this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wu-Tang name generator. Yeah.
Wu-Tang's
That's
for
how
the
he got
children. We did it. That's amazing.
Always.
Wow, but I'm surprised he doesn't owe them residuals for that or anything. If there's some kind of a
Yeah, keep that quiet. Sorry, I didn't mean to out you.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Donald Glover.
Oh, wow. Well, this is what was I going to say? Oh, so my brain, Molly Neuman was last week's guest.
Molly Neuman.
How incredible is she? Had you been
amazing.
a fan of Bratmobile or known Bratmobile or in this world, or where were you? Where does this find you?
Yeah, I know Bratmobile, and I have met Allison in the past multiple times.
I know we have to have Allison on too.
Just like kind of unknowingly, of like just being at shows and stuff and talking to her, and then finding out way later, like, oh, she's Bratmobile. It's amazing. She the very last time that Sabretooth Tiger played at the Echo, she DJ'd in between sets.
Oh,
Allison,
amazing.
So
yeah,
which was years ago.
She's quite the impresario,
but she's awesome.
Persona,
yeah. But no, I did not know Molly, and then I looked her up, and I'm like, no, I don't think I've ever met her.
Yeah, well, she moved to New
But it
York.
was
I don't
amazing.
think she was ever in
I-
LA until recently. Like it's been a long time in LA. I think
okay.
she was in New York.
And she's back in LA.
Bay Area
Okay,
person.
that makes sense.
And then, the sort of Bay Area,
Right.
but then New York, and then, So I was new as friends of friends. She was friends of friends and things. But it felt like it was like as soon as we met, it was like, oh, you're awesome. I love Molly. She was always just so, just so rad. It just seemed like she knew what was going on. She knew how to handle stuff. She always had stuff cooking. I'm like, yes, I like this. I like this person.
Yeah, I do love that that someone who is has the perfect mix of being kind of like independent minded in the sense of like themselves, but also like business minded, indie kind of trying to make things that are best for the little person, for the little guy, for the band and for the artist and but also able to work in the business world and have kind of a realistic outlook on things to be like, okay, yes, we can all say everything sucks. That's true. It kind of does. But we can also like figure out ways to work within these situations to maybe make it a little bit better for the bands and make it better for it just seemed like her talking about the business was super interesting. Like I didn't mind hearing all the super technical like kind of jargon, like when she talked about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's nice. Whereas, sometimes you hear people talking about stream numbers and what we're going to do is we're going to have to capitulate the streams of these, we're looking at a 2.4%, whatever.
Yeah.
But when she's talking about kind of all the technical stuff of the streams and then the move from CDs and kind of being in the middle of that with the Donnas. I didn't know. I had no that was a surprising thing when she was like, "Oh yeah." Then I managed the Donnas for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, you really have been like right in the middle of everything. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
awesome.
think she managed the Locust for a little while as well. I think that's how I might have, I don't know.
Oh
I don't know
really?
how long that journey they were on together, but yeah, no, I mean it's incredible. But even, yeah, what was the thing with the Donnas where it was like a special new technology on the CD that kind of screwed them or something? And it was that
Yeah, I
age. It was that
remember
early
that.
aughts of
It was
like,
like a super CD
that's what a bad idea.
or
But
something,
but I think
a super disc
they
or
could
something like that.
feel
Yeah,
they could
like
feel the, like, the market share, like, slipping out from under their feet and just like, "What do we do? Put a hat on it. Put a bird on it.
yeah,
Put something else on it." Like,
yeah,
it's a super thing. I remember the 5.1, surround sound mix CD things. That was a craze for a little while,
totally.
and yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Well, and
yeah. What were you gonna say?
yeah, no, I was just gonna say all of those little things, and I feel like sorry, I have to keep moving my camera because my cat keeps walking behind my computer.
It's alright.
He really wants to go outside. He keeps
Meow,
fighting with the neighbors. He
meow.
fights with the neighbors' cats.
Oh, no.
He goes and
Stirring
sits on their
shit.
porch and then just like
It's like, "What's up?
and just
What's
waits
up?"
for their cats to come by and like yeah, and he just sits there like nothing's going on. Yeah. It's kind of a bully. I'll be
Yep.
honest. We tried to teach him nice, and somehow he just turned into a bully.
Just a bully
He
cat.
decided he's the guy. Yeah, but
But
anyway, I know that we've talked about this multiple times, but that like and you brought it up, I think, in a really interesting way that we've always like kind of believed the hype in the sense of that the marketing was always like artist, artist, artist. Like, oh, it's great. Everything's for the music, everything's for the musicians, and but really, like this and many other creative ventures are usually run in pretty sketchy ways, and or they were created by sketchy people because people see money in artists because artists want to just make art a lot of times, and like
yeah.
they'll they'll step step into contracts that will allow them to make art for a
Oh,
couple years and not really think about it and then go, oh wait, what was that, what did I sign? And that just is, and I think like someone who has money in their eyes at all times can look at a bunch of artists and go, oh wow, okay, yeah,
I
I
can
can
make.
figure out how to make money out of these
Yep.
guys.
Yep. Cattle to the
Men
slaughter.
and women.
No, I mean
Yeah.
the history of recorded
Well, and
music is straight up criminal contracts, criminal
yeah,
running things. It's just
100%.
abusive and dark as shit. I had this great book I remember early on, reading in the van on tour and stuff. It was called "Rock and Roll is Here to Pay," and it was like the history
Okay.
of rock and roll and bad contracts and just sort of how even the just the publishing, like an ASCAP thing. Why is there publishing versus masters, and just the wording around it? Because prior to recorded music, prior to wax cylinders or whatever, it was all about sheet music. Sheet music was the thing that you sold, and it was like book publishing,
Right.
but it was sheet music, and it was all about who controlled the rights to publish this sheet music. You have Mozart's sheet music or whatever it was,
Right.
or Scott, Joplin, or with these, Cole Porter. It's all the sheet music you'd have to buy and sell, and so that's why when it's literally published, you'd publish the music like you'd publish a book, so you'd own the publishing rights to
Yeah.
the things, so you could produce the sheet music, and then you know get into the 20th century, and you sort of, then that follows just more ways of just screwing over artists basically, with every, from
100%.
radio to jukeboxes to long form LPs, is just but it's a funny, it's a funny one, because to really just the language we use around music, and I think still even into the streaming days, is just based on so many other things. You know what I mean? It's not really related. If you had an album of your 45s, you'd put them literally like in a photo album, and then if you had a collection of
Yeah.
singles, there was an album, like an album of photos, and that's where the album,
Yeah.
long playing album,
Oh, right.
just stuff like that, and then even the A sides and B
Really?
sides, and we still talk
Oh,
about
that's funny. I
singles
didn't know that.
as the A side and the B.
Yeah.
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 So I mean, it's never been a
And
straight
then you're like,
path. it's never been a straight path or a just or a
No.
fair game to artists or anybody or to
Well, and
audiences or
it's
anything. It's always somebody screwing somebody
everything's
over.
well, and everything's going through it right now too. I mean, movies, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. Like I've a friend, my friend Melissa, who directed this really amazing movie, paid for it herself. Finally got like get, went through years of trying to get a distribution deal, got a distribution deal, and then she just posted it on her Instagram of like a 10 page story thing of her just writing what happened with her distribution deal, and that like now this company owns distribution for her movie for 3 years, but they won't put it anywhere, and she can't see any of the money from anything, but they like she found out that they had put it on YouTube for free to just get the ad revenue back, and like all of these things, and
Criminal,
she's like,
criminal.
I'll never see a dollar from this. And she didn't even sign a bad contract. It was just like there were just these weird little
Ugh.
loopholes that were like it was coming up on the last year or whatever. They had it for like 2 years, and it was coming on the last week. They were getting ready to get it back, and they said, "Oh no, it's actually under it's in a deal right now. We're working out a deal." It's like, oh, okay, last minute. And then it turned out that the two guys from the company were like buying it internally to make sure that she couldn't get it back. I mean, it was just like,
Oh yeah, that's what I'm
it
saying.
was
Like
so
it's
crazy. And
yeah,
I'm like, the amount of idiocy and stress and like everything that all of these people put on themselves in like little power moves and little like all of these things of like, yeah, this is the problem. Like all of these people are trying to stress out and like pinch pennies instead of like working with, because you also always hear about the really good managers and the good that are like have 40-50 year careers of working with artists and like actually do it well, and the
yeah.
artists make money and they make
Well, I
money,
don't. I don't believe any of it. Ultimately,
and
at the end of
but
the day, I
then
think you do.
I was going to
You
say,
stick
but
around
then
long enough, and it's just yeah.
they also screw enough people over. Oh my god, my cat is driving
It's
me crazy.
just she's directing
He just turned my
your
light
live
off.
feed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think Molly
He's
really
like, "Oh,
comes
oh,
from
you don't
such
want that?" Yeah.
a great place. I think as an artist first, I've always
Yeah.
seen like, you know, if you've been out there on stage or on the road and or recording and it being you run through the paces of that, you really can understand it firsthand what it's like. So then to go on and help,
Yeah.
future generations of bands or help other people. But I think, but also her experience at Lookout Records. I mean, we didn't get too into the weeds of it, but I don't. But the story, that she alludes to, that she gets into, is that it's a one of the first, or one of the better known or well known record labels from that 90s Bay Area punk scene. Put out the first
Yeah.
Rancid, 7 Inches, Operation Ivy, Green Day, and it was just kind of run by punks out of a garage, and then sold more stuff and put more stuff out there. But there was never really like proper accounting, I don't think, in that kind of way that you would
Yeah.
imagine you and your dumb friends drinking 40s, putting out records. Never really thought of
Yeah.
keeping records of things. And then at some point, I think
Yeah.
the way I understood it, and again, I could be wrong, this could be apocryphal, but the way I understood it was like at some point, Green Day was like, "Can we just have those? Can we just have like all that money back? Like, I think you guys owe us a few $1,000,000." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
do you need that? Do you need the money?" Like, I get, yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of what you said you were gonna pay us, and you never paid us. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're out of business, so we'll give you what we got. Here's everything we have, and this is about it. But we're
Yeah.
never going to be able to pay that back to you, so we're just going to go ahead and end.
Yeah.
But
You can have your records back. Allegedly.
right, and
Allegedly.
yeah, maybe this isn't. I'm sure there's much finer details, and I didn't want to bother Molly too much with the exact details because I imagine at some point she was married to somebody who ran the company, and those personal things related, that were outside of the scope of whatever it is we were
Yeah.
talking about. But just as a label and just as an experience of going through that, I mean, it's literally one of those kind of more heartbreaking or sort of the more cautionary tales of from the underground to major labels and major league sort of stuff. You go, oh shit, okay, well, we've got to figure it out. How do you make this make
Yeah.
sense? When you go from literally selling 500 records to 5 million records. in less than a year. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's really
Yeah.
prepared for that. And so, and again, well,
No,
like you talk
not
about
at all.
a breeding ground for corruption and for embezzlement and for shady characters. Like you get people who have been eating out of dumpsters or or literally homeless, living out of backpacks on
Yeah.
tour, and they're in their late teens, early 20s, to then becoming
Being
millionaires.
millionaires.
They're not going to make the best decisions. They're prime targets for being taken advantage of, and it happens
No.
every single day. I think there's condos full of people who have made millions. There are high rises. There are, in New York and
Yes.
Los Angeles and London, there are little empires built on people who have just taken advantage of dumb kids or inexperienced kids, I should say.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Because you can be the one person, you can be the one band that makes a lot of money, or you can be the one person that gets 20% from every single band or from 20 bands,
right.
and you can make all of the money, you
Yeah.
know, and you
Yeah.
can keep making money because there's always going to be more bands, and it's like you don't necessarily want to own the product. You want to own the company that provides batteries for all the products.
Right. Right. Well, and I think, and we've talked about
Like
this.
you want to be the,
Yeah. There's a middleman. There's a middleman world, and it's a middleman world all over the world. There are
yeah,
middlemans in every industry and every place. But the way those people will always stay in business, and they'll grind through the new artists and the new acts or new actor or whatever it is. But it's like, hey, you need a headshot. I know a guy, and and that guy works for me,
yeah,
and I own the the place where you go get your headshots.
yeah,
You got to go over
I,
here and get fitted for
yeah,
these clothes, and I own the clothing company, and I do, what I mean. You can literally,
yeah,
and you just run people through, and it's you're like throwing spaghetti at the wall. And if you do that to 100,
yeah,
new actors or 100 new bands, a month, at some point, one of them is going to hit and do something right, and then you make back, and then you make back all that money that you put into everything else, and then hopefully plus
yeah.
10x or whatever, and you have but now you're like a venture capitalist. You're not really into the arts, or you're not really into
No,
creative pursuits. You're more or less figuring out how to prey on people's hopes and dreams and and
you're
feed
trying to keep
yourself
things running. Yeah,
while they're content
right.
to live in poverty, just because they're chasing,
Yeah.
they have
Well, and
a message to get out there. They have something to say, and an ego complex and an inferiority complex that will make you a lot of money.
right. Yeah. Well, and I've heard some like management tales of like when um like athlete or
Oh
I mean
God, well
like a
that's a
lot of
whole other
rappers and
world
stuff,
too,
and
right?
they
Yeah, I mean,
you know they come in and like their 18-year-old kids whatever come from nothing, and then someone goes, hey, I'm gonna give you $100,000 to do this thing, or whatever. Athletes,
it's
millions.
gnarly.
And then instantly the manager goes and was like, oh man, you got to invest, so what you have to do is buy a house and buy buy this stuff, and they get them into a house. That means that just to pay for everything that it needs to be for that house, for the upkeep and to keep the mortgage and everything else, that they're going to need to work forever.
Yeah,
Like you put them in a space where for them to get them used to something for like a year, and then like, well, you don't want to lose your house, right? We got to get you on tour. You don't want to lose those, like your condo in Hawaii. You don't. And so they make them, or they
but that's, I mean,
they have them
yeah.
as business managers, they have them overspend,
Mm-hmm.
and then because they can,
You got
when
them on
they're
the
at the
hook.
top of their game, everything's good, and then they got them on the hook, so they're like, oh well, now we have to go. Now you have to tour 330 days a year to pay for all this stuff, but it's going to be great, right? Because then the manager from then on out is making their 20 to 30%
Yeah.
forever.
I mean, did you
you
hear
know
about Bruno Mars? Had this residency in Las Vegas, and somehow got himself into like 500 or $5 million in debt, or something, to the casino where he works. And so it's like, great.
What?
Well, now Bruno Mars is never going to
From
leave Las
gambling?
Vegas. Allegedly.
Oh
Again,
my
I mean,
god.
the stories.
Allegedly.
I always hope these stories are more interesting than they sound in the headlines and the clickbait.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, but I
Where
mean,
they're like,
yeah,
yeah, Bruno Mars has a gambling problem. It's like, no, Bruno Mars's manager probably had a gambling problem. Allegedly.
yeah,
Sorry,
right,
allegedly.
yeah, or something, yeah. That was Colonel Tom Parker, I guess, allegedly. The reason
Oh, right.
Elvis was in Vegas for so long was he was paying off his manager's gambling debts.
How
But
did you like that movie?
I didn't see any of these movies. I've read books, I've read things. I
Did you
can't.
see the last Elvis movie?
No,
The last Elvis movie is
God,
good. I liked it.
the with
Yeah. No, it's
with
good. It's
Tom
weird.
Hanks and
It's done.
Austin Butler.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I
done
can't
by the
imagine.
same guy who did the
Moulin Rouge and
Romeo and Juliet
yeah.
in the 90s.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
Boz
good. It's
Luhrmann.
weird. It's like very cartoony. Yeah, right. It's very
Ah,
cartoony. And but I was actually surprised some of the story was like, oh, I didn't even understand just the general story. I didn't really realize like Elvis never went to Europe. Didn't
no,
know that.
because the
He never left
colonel
the US.
was a Hungarian expat or something hiding out from other stuff. Yeah, no, I mean he could have.
Well,
Elvis. The story is so
he also
sad.
just
Elvis could have
had
done so much more in his life with his talent and everything that he did. It was one of those like Machiavellian sort of like or Rasputin. So you know what I mean? The Singali
yeah,
sort of like all these people. The story is an age old story of how this works. But again, a
easy.
great cautionary tale. For anybody
Yeah,
curious about it. And it's like it doesn't just happen to the young or to the unknown people or the people at the bottom. It literally happens to people at the top every day. Like chances are anybody who's famous has some type of weird you know suffocating appendage of a manager or business person somewhere
totally.
attached to them, whether it's familial or
Totally.
business or
Yeah.
something. It's not it's
The
not an
people
uncommon
that
story.
go to open their bank account and it has like $1,000 in it, and they're like, there was $1 million in here 6 months ago. What happened? Like, right.
Yeah,
Remember that? Remember when I was going to buy all that property?
right,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. It turned out that wasn't a real thing. I was going to tell you.
It's like, wait, but you're my
I
brother.
mean, I've heard.
You're like,
Do you
oh
know that?
no,
Do you know the
this.
rapper or R&B? Do you know T-Pain? Do you know T-Pain, the guy who did?
Yes,
He
but I
did
don't know the whole
auto tune.
story.
He's the first guy that did.
What?
So,
Yeah,
but he has
that
a
guy,
story.
right? Yeah,
Oh yeah, no, that's Little John.
that's Little John. Oh, okay, T-Pain.
T-Pain. Yeah.
Somewhere in the
Anyway,
world. Okay, but what happened? You got
I got
screwed?
to shoot him once for. I got to shoot him once for Guitar Center. Nicest, like the funniest guy. It was so
Little
fun.
John.
Anyway,
Yeah.
no, T-Pain.
Okay, got it.
But I was listening to an interview. He actually had a really good podcast for a while that was hilarious.
Oh,
And he always talked about, because he went completely broke. He had
holy
like
shit!
10 number one songs. He was producing for everybody. He had a whole thing, like he had a whole writing thing. He was writing songs for everybody, making hooks,
Yep.
And one day he had a manager who was like, we got to invest in properties in Florida. So he's like, yeah, man. And they made a bunch of money one year. And so he's like, yeah, I just trusted him. And then one day I opened up my bank account and it was empty and I was in debt.
Wow.
And I was like, what happened? He's like, yeah, turned out that wasn't as good of a deal as I thought it was going to be. And he's like, I'm the only person ever who lost money investing in real estate. But he was like, however many years in, 5-10 years in, he's like one of the most famous people, and he broke.
Wow.
Like
yeah.
broke.
It's
And
not
he
an
was like,
uncommon
oh my
story.
God. Wait. Yeah, it's crazy. Like you really think like $5 million is so much money. It turns out you can probably spend $5 million pretty quick if you're not watching what you're
So yeah.
if you're like traveling a lot and buying cars and
Turns out you could spend someone else's
paying a
$5 million
mortgage.
pretty easy. Spending your own $5 million would be
Yeah.
you'd
Right.
feel the pinch of it. What if it's someone else's? If it doesn't legally belong to you, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to miss this money.
Yeah. Turns out when you don't take into account taxes and
Yeah.
other stuff, and then I mean that's going back to the Steve Albini thing from a couple weeks
right,
ago.
yeah.
When he puts those numbers out of the like, here's where if you get $1 million record contract or whatever the number was.
Oh God.
Here's how it breaks out.
Yeah.
And then when it gets down at the bottom, the band has like $9,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah. And there's 5 members of the band, and each person gets that.
Yeah, that you have to split, and you're like, "Oh, wow." And then he's like, "And
Don't
they
forget,
already gave you an advance,
yeah,
so you're
you owe
actually
it
in
to
debt.
them. Yeah, don't forget.
You owe the other parts." Yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
So,
Well, I
it
remember
was
early
pretty
on. I mean,
funny.
I think with Dean and I, come from a sort of DIY space, but we always had honest talks about it. I
Yeah.
think it's easy to get caught up in stuff because there's nobody really knows the firsthand account of how any of this stuff works. You know what I mean? It's not like the guy
Yeah.
down at the barber shop is going to tell you this story from firsthand knowledge. Like, you know what I mean? These are relatively rarefied occurrences of that happen all the time amongst celebrities, but nobody really knows the real celebrity story. So, as we found ourselves like circling around certain velvet roped echelons of things. Oh wow, what's this? What's this? But it was good we had each other to sort of bounce ideas off of. And I was like, do you want to spend this money? We had also at that point were in our later 20s and had been broke and kind of
Yeah.
scrappy for a long time. And I figured out, we both figured out how to make do with not a lot. And I think that's probably the best advice
Yeah.
for anybody in life, especially younger people who are starting out a career. It's that like just know how to feel comfortable on not a lot of money. If you don't need the thing,
Yeah.
then learn to live without it. And therefore, you know what I mean? Like you said, like you get comfortable and with houses and things and cars, or like if you could really live minimal, then you don't need a lot. And then that means that you're not going to fall prey to something. You know what I mean? Because it was like, well, why they were talking about all
Right.
this big stuff, but I don't need those big things. I just need X, Y, Z. So I'm not going to sign away my life rights for a yacht. When I like share a one
Yeah.
bedroom apartment with four guys and we all ride our bicycles and steal bagels from dumpsters. You know what I mean? Like all I really need is $200 a
Yeah.
month. Like that's about it. I can, I paid off all my credit cards,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm fine. I can legally and comfortably live on $200 a month or some whatever that is. And
Yeah.
and so for that, so we didn't feel like we got wrapped up into things, but there's that stuff, where it's like, oh yeah, well, don't you guys want a tour bus? And I was like, oh, well, what does a tour bus cost? Like, well, it's $1,000 a day for the bus and then another $500 a day for the driver or something like that. I forget what the numbers were,
Yeah.
and we're like, well, that's a lot we're only getting paid,
No.
like $800 for the show. And I think
Yeah.
some people, if they have a manager or somebody else or a record label or people just being like, yeah, but it's worth it because you need it because you can't be out on the road and not be on a bus, that kind of thing. And you're
Yeah.
like,
You got to be relaxed.
so you're instantly like going into debt, to do the thing that you love to do. And it's like, okay, you got to take some
Right.
chances. You don't always, you're going to buy that $1,000 plane ticket, but if you have $10,000 worth of shows, in the next 6 months lined up, you're like, okay, well then I need to spend 1,000 to make the 10,000, whatever.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of those questions of like, I don't think we need a bus. I think we can drive this ourselves. Right? We got away with renting minivans, which was fun. Cause then the other things too, like, well,
Yeah.
you could buy like a Econoline, but even that, we had done versions like Dean drove his dad's old, he had a van conversion, the Spunt 5. It had like 4 captain's chairs in it
Yeah.
and like, shag carpet and stuff. And that was our first van, but it broke down all the time.
Amazing.
And it gets parking tickets. You have to find a place to
Yeah.
park it. Like owning a van is like, it's a major
Oh,
expense.
right.
And who's gonna take care of it? It's your van? Well, it's the band's van, but someone's name's got to be on the insurance, and you got to pay insurance every year, and you got to
Yeah.
pay for repairs and upkeep, and those things suck down gas. So if when you're not on the road, you're only on the road maybe half the year at most. There's still another 6 months. Who's in charge of the van?
You're paying insurance and you're doing everything else.
It's
Yeah.
costing you even when you don't need it to have it. So we got away with, especially because we were a 2-piece, we'd get these Dodge Grand Caravans for like $200 a week. So for $400 a month, we could just run that thing unlimited miles all over, and they had the stow and go, like they had these like little like compartments underneath the seats, so you could put all the records in
Yeah.
there, and so they were hidden. And plus, nobody
It's
wants to
amazing.
break into a soccer mom van. Like you have a big
Yeah.
work van looking thing or Econoline at a cheap motel, and it's like, oh, I bet there's good stuff in
Yeah.
there. But a
Did you
soccer
put
mom
like
thing,
those
I'm like,
stickers on the back of like the family of like Bobby,
no,
Joey?
we should have. But it was very, yeah, no, we had a big blanket we would throw over everything, and just try to make it look as
Yeah.
nondescript as possible. Like nothing to see here. And they got great gas
Yeah.
mileage. I
And
don't know.
it's,
We got away with
yeah.
not a lot, and I think that's
When
was helpful.
you guys could also like when you come at it from that point, like you can negotiate based on how much freedom you want.
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
don't the less you need, the more freedom you have. So it's like you can come to it, someone's like, I'm gonna give you all this money for your publishing. And you're like, I mean, we'd rather have our publishing or or whatever. I mean, I know
Yeah,
people who
yeah.
gave away all their publishing for like a $15,000 check or whatever because when we were 24 years old, getting a $15,000 check was like mind blowing. You know, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. I mean, I heard some other story from like a young rapper in the 90s who was like finally got signed and then had written a song and the publisher said, "Hey, I'll go out and buy you any jewelry you want, but just give me the publishing on that song." And he was like, "I went shopping all day and bought this jewelry and bought all this stuff." And then that turns out that song ended up being worth about $1 million,
Hmm.
you know, over the like 10 years or whatever. And but it's like those people are smart. They're like, "Oh, this kid's gonna okay, yeah. Give me 3 points on that. What's a point? Yeah, exactly. It's only three. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. You know,
It's
whatever." And
yeah. I mean,
ends up
that's
being worth a lot of money.
it's criminal. You know what I mean? That's really one of those things.
Yeah,
It's like I
it
don't
really
think
is.
it's not explained to people, and hopefully, as time goes on, I mean, that's the there's a few thoughts I have about it, but as you know, hopefully as time goes on, people learn these kinds of things, and you know, it becomes more common knowledge. But also, I think in the world of streaming, I think the pie has gotten sliced pretty thin. You know, that's until they figure out a way to
Yeah,
make money. It's like they've almost, you know, I think at this point, like the powers that be, you know, in recording, the recording mafia, the recording, you know, community, have figured out how to not make any money off of recording. And you know, so it's one of these things that you're like,
yeah.
I don't even know what
It's
it means
weird.
anymore. Like, okay, yeah, you own the masters of a thing that makes, you know, 0.001 cent on a thing, and it gets played 300 times a
Right.
day. Like there's great. You'll have $30 in 5 years. I don't know. You know, it's
Yeah,
really one of these things. Like, why
it's
don't
nice.
if nobody's making money, perhaps maybe is there a chance for reckoning, or it's just gonna. But chances are, it just becomes more just cutthroat and razor talent, and we're just gonna like steal pennies. Literal pennies are getting stolen. You're like, okay,
Literal pennies.
okay, wow, thanks guys.
Yeah,
This was a bad contract when it had to do with ten
fancy.
dollars. Now it has to do with like fractions of pennies. Like, great, you know. But
That's a young
yeah.
person's. It's definitely a young person's game
Well, I get the sense too that I don't
for
know
sure.
what you hear, but I think there's the like sampling versus co-writing versus this. And again, not to be old man shaking my fist, but it's almost in the sense I wonder in the world of streaming and the devaluation of music and for what it's worth now. It's like, does it even matter? Could you just record a cover of a song and just say it's yours? You know what I mean? Is there anybody really litigiously going after
I
stuff
don't know.
because there's so little money involved in it whatsoever?
I mean, there definitely is. I think that the biggest thing with a lot of the upper like echelon people is that when anything comes close to anything,
Yeah,
that
they'll come
that
after
there's
them. You're
lawsuits
right.
because like a huge conglomerate owns like 150,000 songs or whatever.
And they have
And it's
AI
like
that's
if
going to
one of
sniff them
those
out
comes
and
up,
see what it is. It's like, or but just
I
give
was
them.
going to say
But
I'm
at the same
sure
time,
there's AI
yeah,
or there's some kind of software that just scans every new song that comes out and goes, how close is it to our catalog?
yeah.
Beep beep boop 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 boop. This one is 64% the same. Sue, you know, or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't know how it works.
I just
I
don't.
think the computers and everything.
I just don't think it matters though. The
I was
sense of what
gonna
I'm
just say
saying is
that
like
I
it
don't.
doesn't
Yeah, I
matter
don't think so either.
because everyone's just ripping everyone else off, and
Yeah,
if it just becomes the way it's all done, then it's I mean everyone's just suing the next person over the next person, and no one almost has rights to anything anymore. It just feels like, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and cover
yeah,
the song. Like, okay, cool, you get all the back end of it, but again. There's no back end. I didn't sell anything physical. Nobody downloaded it. It was played 10 million times on whatever TikTok. But it's like,
YouTube,
what is there?
TikTok.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Again, it's just not a lot of money. Okay, so now you can have all of the $200 I got from this thing. It's a hit. Like, what is having a hit? How much is even possible to make off of what
I
it
don't
would be
know.
considered a hit anymore? But my friend Jennifer showed me this song
It-
by a new young artist, and I was like, I know this riff. Like, this sounds so familiar. And I had to think about it for a day or two, and it was like, oh wait, this is just Linkin Park. And not that oh sorry,
oh, okay.
hold on, I don't know, I can't find it right here. I'm the old man. but it was like literally it was like, oh, it's just the Linkin Park song, and then there was like
like the try so hard, like nothing really matters or something.
the
Like
Drive
one of those
song.
big
I looked it up.
radio songs.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
but it was really a funny one. It was just kind of like, okay, well, does it even matter? Does anyone care?
Yeah.
It feels like
doesn't even matter.
What was the so Bida Doobie has a song called Take a Bite, and it sounds exactly like Drive by Incubus. Okay. Jeez.
Oh, by Incubus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Way to go. But it's,
and
like,
it's very,
yeah,
it's very possible they've never even heard the Incubus song. But
I wonder, or it's just a straight rip, and they just give Incubus all the money from the publishing from it, or something. It's like,
oh, could be.
Yeah.
Just split it.
Yeah.
I'll do sound-alikes.
Right. Yeah.
Sound-alikes and split it. I don't know. I don't know how any of it works, honestly. I mean, the whole art thing, like art is just going through like a huge tank. Like all of the art sales at the high end are like tanking.
Really?
This last month. Yeah.
What's that about?
I just think the economy is, I mean, eventually I think you kind of talked about it on the podcast that these things are made to like have skyrocketing profits and then to like fall off a cliff.
That's just
by design. I think that the
There's
business,
no legs on the
well,
thing.
it makes kind of sense because even like stocks, right? Like Tesla goes way up. And then all the people who are either smart enough or have the right programs to see when it's going to happen, then you sell a bunch of stuff when it's at the top, and then you wait for it to crash, and then you buy a bunch of stuff when it crashes, and you do it again and again and again.
You're just pocketing that profit every time you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think art is probably the same thing. Like there's probably the Warhols and the Van Goghs and all those the Picassos and everything. Those are always going to be high end whatever, and then you're going to always have this middle ground where all of these younger artists, I mean they call it flipping. It's the same as houses. Like people will buy young artists that people are interested in, and they'll buy like a whole show. And the young artist will be like, oh my God, this is great. I just made like $100,000, And then that person and someone else takes all of it to auction. And because they now own it, the artist has no rights to it anymore. And so then they auction it. And if it doesn't do well at auction, the artist's career is screwed.
So they went from the biggest sellout thing. We just made all the money to then like, well, let's see what it's really worth.
And then they try to auction half of it and think that it's going to bring in $250 or something, and it brings in $50,000. No one was interested, and then they go, okay. And so then all of that person's art that's on the market already that people own is all now devalued because one person decided to went
on a big run
to
see if they could.
So then that's why, and people give like artists and gallerists, really bad, they get a bad reputation for like holding off art, only selling it to certain people. When people come in, it's like, oh, someone wants to come in and buy a painting. Like, well, who are you? What collection is it going to go into? This is at the higher end of stuff. This is not like a couple $1,000. This is like when things are like $20, $30, $40, $50,000. But the reason a lot of it, I mean, some of that's sketchy and kind of weird, but the reason a lot of it happens is because there's also these kind of nefarious characters that will also like, no one will sell to them anymore. So then they will hire people to go buy work for them. And then those people then give it to the sketchy person who then goes to auction to try to sell it. Because because the artist has no rights. Once it's like selling a pair of shoes, right? Like once you buy a pair of Jordans, you can go sell those Jordans for however, you can keep them forever and sell them for whatever you want later on or whatever. And so the piece of art is just a commodity that you don't have any. So it's a little different than music because, right, like music, like you can sell a CD. Like if you have a rare piece of vinyl,
right.
That's kind of what it's like, I guess.
Well, this was a lot of the talk around NFT stuff. You know what I mean?
Where an artist only puts out
each time.
one
Yeah.
piece of vinyl,
Mhm.
right? And which is why I thought that the most interesting part of the NFT thing for me was the contract. So like
Right. Yeah,
not even the
exactly.
art. I mean, you and I
No, of
talked about
course.
this a
Yeah, we
million times. I'm like, this seems like a scam. This seems like a scam. but
everybody
that
seems to
but
think it's
that
good,
the
but
but
yeah.
the contract part, the yeah, but the contract part was the most interesting because if all of the payments have to go through like crypto or whatever, but not even crypto, like it just go through your bank, but you actually have a contract. So every time that thing is sold, 10% or 20% or whatever you negotiated is siphoned off to you.
Yeah.
Then it's like, I don't know, you kind of want people to sell things, or you want the the artist gets control over these things, and you're not just kind of making things that rich people can then make 5 times as much money off of your work. But a lot of artists also keep old work. Like I know a couple people that were they're pretty successful selling everything, and then realized that their older work was was becoming more valuable than their new work, and they didn't have any of their older work left.
Mm.
Like they didn't have anything, they hadn't kept anything. And so then like resellers were making more money off of their selling their old paintings than the artist was making off of selling their new paintings.
It's
So then
crazy.
they realized like, oh, okay,
Mm.
business wise, I'll make 10
Oh,
paintings and I'll sell
hold
5 of them.
hold on
And
one
then I
sec.
keep 5.
Hey, yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta run. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to
No,
be
no problem,
continued.
man.
Here, we'll pause this
Um
and we'll come back to it.
more on
What?
the business of angering artists.
Love it. All right.
All
All
right.
right. I'll see you next Monday.
Thanks, Randy.
See you. Bye. Bye.